Okay. Thanks.
So actually, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to say a few things about my personal journey. I grew up in a family, a Mormon family that was very devout. My grandparents were immigrants in the late 1800s from Great Britain and Wales. So that's how ensconced I was growing up in Mormonism. Went through all the hallmarks of turning 8 years old and the great expectation that at this point you're accountable, so you need to be baptized. Went through the priesthood authorities, which they have a line that's more age oriented. At 12, you're ordained. That's like you would be if you were Jewish.
Yeah.
And then you go through different steps, become an elder when you're about 19, which is a little different. Then there's other steps into a higher priesthood. They call it the high priests. That eventually comes when you're more seasoned, right? But those are expectations that are just naturally there for anybody who's devout in faith, right? So I've been through all that, and married in the Mormon temple, and took part in all the ceremonies there. But I had an interesting thing happen at about almost 16 years of age. My family moved from Northern California to Denver, Colorado. And I didn't know that there was a group called Youth for Christ. I had no idea who they were, because that was not something we ever did. It was went outside our own church. All right. So at that point, I am sitting there listening to Billy Graham talking about grace. And I'm like, wow, what is grace? So I go home and I talk with my loving mother, and she says, well, that's what everybody gets. And that's salvation, but that's not the way it really works. The way it really works is, and they have scripture to base this up in the Bible, that we're not saved by grace alone. But then that gets interpreted to be there's work that needs to be done, which is true, but it takes away from, in my personal feeling at that moment was, well, but this man is telling me that the deed has been done, and the atonement is in action. And then when I came to this group, this wasn't the only time I'd heard this, but I saw our pastor over here wearing John 3:16, and I go, that's pretty powerful too. That if we submit and turn our hearts to the Lord, he's going to direct our lives now and forever, and that we will be saved by his grace, his mercy. In here, I've been very much admired by what you all brought to me. The gospel, the law and the gospel. I mean, you could put that in any other words, the truth and the love, or whatever you want to call it, but the law and the gospel is really what it is. And that it's for everyone. And so at that point, as I grew into adulthood, at about 40s, I'm like, okay, so they're asking me to go in and sit down with somebody and basically lie to them and tell them that I'm perfect, because the tenets of the faith are the perfecting of the saints and the spreading of the gospel, and those are the basic tenets of Mormonism. But it excludes, because in the very beginning, when Joseph Smith came upon his request in the early 1800s, actually 1830s, he's looking around the room and saying, I got 7 churches in my town. Are any of these true? And I think your notes was right on, actually. So his answer was no, none of them. They all lack. Well, we're studying Revelations now, and yeah, they all had problems. But did they lose did the world lose Christ because the Roman Catholic Church took over? Well, there's a lot of opinions, and there's a lot of denominations, but there's only one Jesus Christ. And I came to step away from that narrow putting God in a box to saying he's everywhere. And part of my experience here is exactly that. So not unlike Gene, he was born Jewish, raised in a Jewish family for some time, and he doesn't identify as being a Jew. He identifies as being a Christian first and foremost. And so my journey has been one to find out what God's grace really is and accept it. And I feel like I have. And I've been reinforced by being here amongst you, my friend John, that brought me here several years ago. He introduced you to me as a group of Christian guys that have breakfast. So, I've come to know a lot more about you than that, and just so much appreciate the depth and the understanding you're bringing in my personal life as far as Bible-based thinking. And so all this journey of mine, I went to BYU. I graduated from there and the University of Utah and other places. So at BYU, we had to have a religious class every single semester. Well, because I took time out to be in the Army, my 4-year program was a 5-year program, right? So I had a lot of classes, but all of them that referred to the Bible also referred to the other canons of Scripture that they followed, which they call the modern day revelations. And they are apostolic in that respect. And I thought that was very right on. The one thing that I didn't quite get was baptism by immersion in the Mormon Church is considered for the remission of all sins. So when they are baptized and they come out of the water, they are told there is no more sin in your life. You're as pure as a white driven snow, no matter what you've ever done. And going forward, as long as you stay with the communion, or as they call it, sacrament, and renew that covenant weekly, then it's like very legalistic in that way. They've also taken on a lot of rituals and spiritual from the Old Testament that gets blended in. And it's been a progress. People like to think they're in the Mormon Church. It's always been the same. We've never changed a thing. Well, they have changed things, and they have accepted things that they wouldn't originally accept. They've adapted to the new world. They now call the Book of Mormon another testament of Jesus Christ. And it was called the Book of Mormon because the last prophet in it, and they do believe in apostolic leadership. The last prophet was Mormon. He wrote this book out, and then it reappeared in Joseph Smith's time as a young man. So that's kind of the crux of what we're talking about here. And but they do have that feeling about baptism, where it's been so enlightening for me to be able to look at God and realize how big he is, how Alpha and Omega he really is. So what happens lots of times, I think, in denomination is people start to zero in on certain aspects and then expound them into something that wasn't written in the Bible, and they'll add on to that. And so I'm at a point in my life where I want to be in the Word and be in the action and realize that it's already been done for me, and that I get to go and do the goods that I can do in my life because I love the Lord. And I know he loves me first, and all the little idiosyncrasies that they have in their belief system, it supports them. Very few LDS people are looking to look outside the church because they believe that they have the only true church in the face of the earth. Now, I don't happen to believe that. I happen to believe what I see in front of me and here in this room and other places. And I noticed that all of you who listen to Christian music, talk about, an evangelist or somebody that you respect. because you're open, you're gathering. That's what I want to do in my life, is be open and gathering and accept the unbelievable blessings that God gave and gives me every day. And it's weird that I'm here today because I wasn't supposed to be. I was supposed to be on my 75th birthday. 9 days ago, I started having extreme back pain. I don't know where it came from. It's different from what I've had. I have spent the last 8 days sleeping in the recliner. Yesterday morning, I went in and got 3 epidural shots. And I woke up and said I could be online, or I could come here and tell you, thank you for your faith and your devotion to your God. And it's touching me in ways that I'm so thankful. So I appreciate it.
Okay, good. Thank you. That's great.
Herb,
Thanks.
Herb, did you go on a mission?
Oh, yeah. If people can ask
I was
questions.
going to get drafted, and I decided maybe that would be better. I still hadn't figured out the whole grace thing yet, so I figured the Army might be safer. My first wife did, and my second wife converted, and my third wife is not. So yeah, I'm not having a perfect journey, but with God's grace, I am having a perfect journey. Yeah. Another precept that Mormonism had was perfecting of the saints. So their idea is you just do everything, and then at the end, you can have an adjustment where we know the adjustments can be done.
Very good. Thank you. You guys can have this one back. Okay, very good. I think God put you here today just for this time. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, that's great. That's a great story. And at least it brings it a little bit alive as far as what we're talking about. So, here's one thing is that, when he was talking about, Mormons changing with the modern culture, and stuff like that. This is what they're going through right now. They're working. See, before they didn't want to be Christians. Al, we'll see you. Have a good doctor's visit. Okay. Anyway, so before they didn't want to be Christians. We're different. I mean, if anything, we're the true Christians. You guys are on the outside. It's us four, no more, close the door. And now what they want is they want to be considered Christian, just like real Christians are. I don't know if we're real Christians. No, but they want to be, they want to be identified just as another Christian denomination and sect. And I'll show you a couple of ways that they're doing it. Is that, anybody here watch The Chosen? It's Mormon done. The production company and one of the big producers, they're Mormons. Now, I'm not saying that they're preaching a Mormon God, okay, or a Mormon Jesus. But what they're trying to do is, you get the names out there and you go, oh, Mormons are involved in this. Hey, they got a Jesus here. Okay. Because then when you associate with them, they go, hey, I saw The Chosen. What do you got to say? And they do it. What's the new movie? The Sound of Fury? Has anybody seen it? Oh, I've Sound of Freedom. I have a question, because it's called, I keep seeing it referred to as a faith-based movie. Is it faith-based? Do they speak about the faith?
I just saw it yesterday.
And
The Sound of Freedom is a true story about a gentleman that worked for the DEA.
Do the microphone so that they can hear. Yeah.
The Sound of Freedom is a true story about a gentleman who worked for the DEA that got involved with child trafficking.
Yeah.
And when they say it's religious based, it's all based on the fact that God's children are not for sale.
But is that explicit in the movie? That's what I'm saying. Oh,
extremely.
Okay.
Extremely.
I don't know.
Yeah.
They keep saying it's faith-based, and I go,
Yeah.
Well, I know it's about the human trafficking and
Yeah.
or the, stuff like that, but I didn't know what, other than Jim Caviezel, who's Jesus Christ in real life,
Yeah.
is in it,
Yeah.
But, but I know, anyway, Mormons, Tim Ballard's a Mormon. The main guy's a Mormon. The company that produced it are Mormons. The one who talked them into buying it from Disney, it was made 5 years ago. And then Fox put it in the can, put it up on the shelf. They didn't know what to do with it. And then when Disney bought all the Fox materials, this is 20th Century Fox. When they bought the Fox materials, they ended up with that. But they bought all this other good stuff too. So they didn't know what to do with it. So the company, this angel, whoever they are, they ended up by buying it. It was, why can't I think of the guy's name now? He's the news commentator, the white-haired guy, blonde-haired guy. Why can't I think of his name? Used to be on Fox years and years ago. I'll think of it as we. Who?
I can't remember his name.
Yeah. Anyway, he's who? No. No. Anyway, but he's the one who convinced them to buy back the film. It doesn't make anything different about the films or anything like that. But I'm just saying they're just trying to get into that, into that mainstream, and then people say it's a faith-based movie and all that, but they don't even. Nobody even knows. All I'm saying is they just want to get back into the mainstream. So that probably doesn't mean anything about anything, though. Somebody asked last week, what when we were talking about the doctrines, and somebody says, is the Book of Mormon about the Mormon doctrines? And it's not. It's about their history. But I got a little synopsis here. Huh? No. Shoot. We don't have to think about it right now. If I think about it, I'll bring it up. Anyway, I got this thing here. It says, what is the Book of Mormon about? The book follows the descendants of Lehi, a man who was living at the time of the prophet Jeremiah. He traveled allegedly with his family from Jerusalem across the Atlantic Ocean to the Americas. The Book of Mormon is divided into chapters based on the alleged different authors who recorded the history of Lehi's descendants. The two primary lines of Lehi were the Nephites and the Lamanites, both of whom built really large, elaborate cities in the New World and engaged in massive violent wars with each other. The climax of the Book of Mormon takes place in the third book of Nephi, when Jesus Christ appears to the Nephites in America shortly after his resurrection, and he preaches the gospel to them. The book concludes with the testimony of Moroni, who was the only Nephite to survive the last battle with the Lamanites in the 5th century. The Lamanites then became the ancestors of modern Native Americans. Before he died, Moroni allegedly gathered the golden plates that recorded the history of his people and buried them on a hillside. And then it says after his death, Moroni became an angel. Okay, and then he came back, and he's the one who appeared to Joseph Smith. Now, so that we're clear, because I always want to bring this back to Orthodox Christian theology. We all know when we die, we don't turn into angels, right? Everybody shake their head, please. Everybody, please shake your head. We don't, and how many times do you see when people say, oh, so-and-so died, heaven gained another angel? That isn't the way, that it works. Anyway, but Moroni became an angel. So that's how that, that's for what it's about. There's nothing like modern day. Did I describe that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, and that's what I've got here. Another test, but I think I've always known it as that. So maybe in the last 50 years, it's been like that. Yeah, really? Yeah.
But working for trying to bring other people in trust me. It's not to bring them in the Christians growing in their own competition.
Right.
To bring them in.
Oh, to be a Mormon. Oh, definitely. Everything I say when they trying to be considered normal, I shouldn't say that's pejorative, but to just be another, Christian denomination, that's all just the marketing part. That's all the facade. Because once they get you, they're going right back to, what their core, what their core beliefs are, like that. So, because they still don't think that we've got it right, like that. The thing about the restoration, that after the apostles died, the faith was lost because there was no apostolic succession. Doesn't even matter if what was being taught was right. It didn't have the apostolic covering, to make it, Rome's the same way with the Pope, that they've got that apostolic, succession from Peter. That's who the Pope is. And it's got to be that direct line, I don't know if the Eastern Orthodox are the same way with their metropolitans. Their metropolitans, they're not their Pope. There's 5 like Eastern Orthodox branches, and each has their own metropolitan who's the head, the head guy. I don't know if they do apostolic, succession, with that. So anyway, so we had left off on this sheet here about on the second page, which doesn't say much for us, does it? But we got all the way to the second page. Yeah, I know. Hey, here's one thing, and this will sound a little bit mean, but it's not meant to be. Okay, like the Roman Catholic Church back in 2001 it came out with a statement not accepting Mormon baptisms. Like a Roman Catholic will accept the Lutheran baptism, like we do. We accept if it's done in the name of the Trinity. If it's a regular baptism done in the name of Trinity, we accept that we don't require people to be rebaptized. And Rome's kind of the same way. But they did come out and say that the Mormon baptisms were not valid. And it goes to, even though they use the words, in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, the Roman Catholics know they don't mean the same thing that we mean, that they mean 3 separate gods who have a similar purpose. They don't have the same essence. We believe in 3 persons who have the same essence. So that wasn't the point. The point is that they rejected it. I got a statement here from one of the a spokesman, Dale Billis, a spokesman for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, said, he's saying, he's responding to this. He says, as a fundamental tenet of our faith, he says, we are neither concerned nor offended that the Catholic Church has determined not to recognize Latter-day Saint baptisms. Dale Bellis, a spokesman for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, says, as a fundamental tenet of our faith, we believe that all people have a God-given right to worship how and where they may. Do we have a God-given right to worship the way that we think is right? Does everybody have a God-given right to worship the way that they, No, we don't. God has opened the earth and swallowed up people who believe that. Eli's sons in Samuel, one of those Samuels, they chose to use strange fire to worship, and God killed them, and that was the part that I said, you're going to come out sounding mean, like that. But see, that seems to be their tenet, is that See, because what they want to do is they want to be left alone. I mean, because Mormons were persecuted. I mean, in their beginning and probably up through, I don't know, maybe the mid 20th century. I don't know. They've always been looked at badly. So they want to be left alone. Jews want to be left alone, to where they come out and they say, well, that's good that you believe that, but and it's not so much because they don't think it's any more right that we believe what we believe. They believe in what the God of the Bible, but they want to be left alone. I want you to stop killing us, that kind of a thing. So you say stuff like that, but we don't have a God-given right to, worship the way that we want, and see, here's the strange part is, do we grant people, as Americans, we do. But as Christians, do we grant people the right to believe what they want to believe? I mean, we can't stop them. It's not a matter of us stopping them. But when people say, okay, I guess if that's what you believe, God bless you. It's like, huh? Well, it's civil law, right? We can't eat them because they believe differently than we do. Howard, I see Howard on there. I didn't see Howard on there earlier. Hi, Howard. Howard waved to everybody. Anyway, so okay, so it's in the part on bottom of page 2 where it says, "Who is God?" And that's where we left off. So where did God come from? God was once a man who worked his way to exaltation. Okay, and we'll get into that in a minute. Mormons claim that God the Father was once a man, that he then progressed to godhood. This is in your notes. That he is now exalted. He's now exalted, immortal man with a flesh and, a flesh and bone body. So, and, the darndest thing is, it seems not just Mormons, but all these groups, it seems like they take what it says in the Bible and then go out and proclaim the opposite. Yeah, because see what it says here in Numbers 23 in your notes. It says, God is not a man that he should lie, nor a son of man that he should repent. He has said, and will he not do? Or has he spoken, and will he not make good? It says in Numbers, that's an Old Testament, way back in the beginning. He said, I'm not a man. But they say he was a man. You don't have this in your notes, but in Psalm 50, verse 21, it says, these things you have done, and I have kept silent. You thought that I was altogether like you, but I will rebuke you. In other words, he's saying, you think I'm just like you. You just think I'm God and I'm just like you people. But they ended up by saying just the opposite. Speech that Joseph Smith gave, Herb had said, yeah, my notes, were right on, but most of my notes I take right out of their writings. It's not a matter of me against them. I'm just taking on. But Smith gave a talk at a funeral for Elder King Follett. I want to be called King. I mean, I think that was his name. I don't think it was his title. He was an elder in the church. Elder King Follett. And this is now called the King Follett Sermon, which is probably Joseph Smith's biggest declaration of the faith, in Mormon. He said, I am going, tell me if this sounds like these verses you got under, who is God that I put there. He says, I am going to tell you how God came to become God. Well, there's a good one right there, because God says that he always was, always will be. He was the first, he's the last. He says, we have imagined and supposed that God was God from all eternity. You heard that somewhere. He had that part right. That's what we heard. I will refute that idea and take away the veil so that you may see God himself was once as we are now, and is an exalted man and sits enthroned. I lost my place there. Okay. Glorified, exalted man and sits enthroned in yonder heavens. So they believe that he's a man, just became an exalted man and now sits on that throne. Wait, huh?
Where is the authority?
Joseph Smith, and Joseph Smith's an apostle. Well, no. Well, of course, people would say to us, why do we believe that? And we say, well, the apostle Paul said it. Like that. But see, again, this goes back to my concern is that they say that they're Christians and they need to be challenged on what Christians, at least what Christians believe. I'm not even saying who's right or wrong. I mean, at that point, it's not a matter who, at that point, it's not a matter who's right or wrong. It's just that Christians say this, Mormons say this, you can't be both. Like that. So that's what, who said that? Oh, Troy.
I'm a little confused.
I'm a lot confused.
So under who is God? God was once a man who worked his way to exaltation. How do they respond to Genesis 1? God created man in his own image. How does that reconcile?
I don't know how they reconcile it. I don't expect that when they were laying all this down that they were expecting people to ask questions. No, I'm serious. I'm just saying, hey, I'm teaching you, and the people sit there and go, okay. The people that were in the group, you have something, Herb?
In one church, they had 12 apostles. One of them is the prophet.
Right. Yeah.
So they say through that prophetic authority that calling in his life, he can translate what the degree.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. In fact, I think I said that either. Oh, is your microphone on? Oh, I don't know.
You just
I'll just repeat it. What he was saying was that, that in the Mormon church, there's 12 apostles, and the top apostle's the prophet. And being a prophet, he is able to declare the meanings. Okay. And I said probably a couple of weeks ago that the Mormon church has never been without a prophet from Joseph Smith on. And I said, this guy Nelson today is the prophet, been there since been there a good 20 some years, I think. And he's 98 years old, and you stay until you die, and then when you die, the next senior guy on the list takes over. He becomes the prophet. But see, that's not unlike what the Roman Catholics do with the Pope. Is that the Pope is the one who has the final word. Now, I don't know how often a Mormon prophet speaks where it's the absolute truth. In the Roman Catholic Church, it's called ex cathedra. It's from the throne of Christ. And so not everything that Pope Francis says is from the throne of Christ. It may just be his goofy opinion or, something like that. But when he speaks from the throne of Christ, I don't know if that's physical, that he has to actually sit, or if that he's speaking ex cathedra, then that when they talked about the assumption of Mary into heaven, he spoke that. Now, in fact, I think that may be the last time a pope spoke ex cathedra was in 1950, and I'm doing this from memory, with the assumption of Mary, that Mary, when she died, was assumed up into heaven right away. But anyway, so I don't know, like with these Mormon prophets, how often they speak. Were you going to say something, right?
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Do your microphone. When they use thus, you gotta have to have the blue light come on. Okay.
There we go.
So when they say thus saith the
Thus
Lord,
saith the Lord, and that's supposed to be the prophetic current word.
Okay.
Which it does change.
Yeah.
In spite of what they may tell you.
Were you guys able to hear them? Oh, okay. They said that. Yeah. Okay, wait. Okay, Ray's gonna say something.
No, if the Mormons consider themselves Christians or want to be considered Christians, then wouldn't the other religious sects that are Christians say, okay, you want to come and join us as Christians? This is, the Nicene Creed. Wouldn't they go before a council to be accepted? Just like, you
No.
join the United Nations.
Well, there's no formal joining of Christianity. I mean, like that. Yes. See, they actually reject the ecumenical creeds. The Nicene Creed, the Apostles' Creed, the Athanasian Creed, Chalcedon, and whatever they are, because they say those were man-made. They said that those were done during that time of apostasy. And that's one of the reasons why they don't. There's many groups that are considered Christian who they don't deny the creeds, but they call themselves non-creedal, and they just don't pay attention to the creeds. Although but if you walked up to them and they say, do you believe God created, heaven and earth? They would say yes, but they just don't confess it the way that like us real Christians do Sunday morning.
They seem to be having the same problem that the church in Sardis had. That they said we just want to get along with everybody, and therefore, you can believe what you want to believe. I'll believe what I want to believe, and that diminishes the statement or your belief when you say, "Hey, it's okay if you believe that."
This is why we've taken this break from the letters to the seven churches, because what was happening in Sardis, what was happening in Pergamos, the teachings of the Nicolaitans, those who were tolerating, that woman Jezebel. And I wanted to bring it up to modern day. I didn't expect to take this long to do it, but I wanted to bring it up to modern day of what is it that we as a church that we should be at least given a harsher look at, and maybe not tolerating as it might come into the church. Because as soon as the churches start, now the easy one, we did that Sparkle Creed a couple of weeks ago. Okay, that's low hanging fruit. I mean, that comes into your church, you just know that that's wicked, okay, and you reject it. But these Mormon people, they're pretty nice people, and can nice people be wrong? Like that. And so that's exactly why we took the break. Were you going to say something, Joe?
Yeah, and just in answer to Ray's statement there, welcome to the spread of modern denominations.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same problem. And I refer to that as smorgasbord Christianity.
Yeah.
You go along and pick out that which you like, and you reject that which you don't.
Well, now to defend, all those, if they can confess the ecumenical creeds, because that's the important stuff. That's the stuff that the early church laid down when they were having all this problem. Remember, they'd gotten 2-3 centuries away from the apostles, and things start going haywire and loosey-goosey. And it's okay, let's at least tie it down. What is it that we say that people must believe? And so then you read the creeds, and the Apostles' Creed basically says it. Nicene Creed tightens it up a little bit, and then the Athanasian Creed says, look, let's make sure we've got this Trinity stuff down word for word, which is pretty much what it does. And then the Confession at Chalcedon, which nobody ever recites, but it's probably the best one, is the one that says that Jesus is God, like that. But that's what they do. So now if people decide to baptize or not baptize, or to do communion as a memorial service, or we do it as efficacious for forgiveness of sin, and we do think that those things are important and they do make a difference, but those aren't the things that throw you outside the scope of being a Christian, But the denial of those things in the creeds, They do put you outside. In fact, the Athanasian Creed, if you read, I think it's in the opening line and in the closing line, it basically says, if you don't believe these things, you're out. That's what it says. You know? So
it was kind of like that presentation that I was listening to. I didn't send you this one, but he was talking about the church in Sardis, and they compromised and they compromised and they compromised, and pretty soon the message was lost.
Yeah.
And this one, God came down and or the letter was sent to him. You need to clean up your act.
yeah, no, it's pretty serious. It's pretty serious stuff. You know, you got to remember those communities were more, they didn't live under a democracy. You didn't have to be nice. You know, the thing about Luther, you read all that stuff that Luther says, and boy, he sounds like a mean guy, like that. But that's the way people talk back then. I mean, when they debated, it was in polemics, it was in arguing. It wasn't ironic, which is the way people do things, today. You make nice with each other. It's just different, different cultures that people were in. Last comment.
Even in the creeds, it's what we believe. You don't believe it.
No, that's what I say. That's what I say. In the Athanasian Creed, I mean, it says that. I think in the opening line and in the closing line, it says that, like that. And then you got groups that say, we don't believe the creeds because those people didn't have the authority to do that. And then a lot of times people were fighting over, did the people, and I mean, that is a thing, do people have the authority to do it? The Eastern Orthodox Church, they accept you got to remember these creeds were done in that church that was the Eastern Orthodox Church, before the split and they became the East Church and the West Church being Rome. So it was back then, but they accept the Apostles' Creed as ecumenical for all churches. They believe Nicene Creed, ecumenical for all churches. The Athanasian Creed, they don't think that was an ecumenical creed, and therefore they're not bound. Now, I don't think they deny anything in it, but I don't think that they think that whoever did the Athanasian Creed had the authority to to do it. But again, that's off of the Mormon stuff, but that's exactly what the Mormons are doing, is saying, we're going to do it our way because we have this special revelation. You can imagine. So Pastor Skip stands up one Sunday and says, and this could happen. I mean, I don't think it'll happen with you, but it could happen. It happens in churches. They could say, during my quiet time last night, God spoke to me clearly, and he revealed to me the truth. And it's something else, like that. And if you're not one of those churches that adhere to scripture alone, or at least scripture's the predominant source of what we get, you say, hey, Skip's a great guy. He wouldn't lie to us. I guess it's true. I guess Pastor Ron lied to us, Pastor Cade lied to us, Pastor Bach lied to us, because Skip's got the truth. And that's the way this stuff starts. I mean, that's the way it is. And then half the church leaves because they say, well, that's nonsense. And the half that stay, just by the fact that they stayed, bought into it. And then the next generation, they're fully bought into it. Okay. And Mormons today, here's the thing. Mormons today, outside of maybe high leadership, don't know the difference. I mean, Herb, your testimony was that until you ran into Youth for Christ, you had no inkling that there was anything different than what you were being taught, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And by us being Lutheran, we can't go into Utah and say, you Mormons are doing it all wrong. We're here to tell you what the truth is, and you should become Lutherans.
Well, we do.
But if we don't, then
well, we do.
We're doing away disservice.
We do to the extent to say you have to be Christian. I don't know about Lutheran, but Pastor Mark Cares up in Utah, he has a huge ministry to Mormons, up there, like that, where they go out and they confront people on the streets. And Joe, and then we got to finish. Or did you have something you were going to say?
I had a question, is that is how they move from one step to the next within the hierarchy of the church, of the Mormon church. And like, how do you become a disciple or oral board? But you got to show your good works. You got to keep track of your good works.
Go ahead, Herb, were you gonna say something?
It's based on what they refer to as your worthiness. So there's interviews that occur throughout your life, starting with baptism, but by the time you're 8 years old, you've grown up in that, and that's an expectation.
Yeah,
And so a lot of those hallmarks in the priesthood are expectations that are met after an interview, and which is interesting in itself. Where in my personal case, I feel like I would rather be reflecting a Christ-like life in my actions and holding my faith close,
yeah,
So it is different in that way.
yeah.
So if you do nothing else but go in, sit down and nod your head, you're going to get it.
Yeah,
And all the positions in the church there's no paid position.
right. Yeah, and that's something honorable on their part. When I say that they don't know the difference, I'm not saying that in a bad way. It's the way that they're brought up. The ones that know the difference are the higher up ones, and they may even be higher up than, say, the ward bishop or whatever
Right.
they're called, because they're just brought, but the ones that are higher.
It's very legalistic in that
Right,
respect.
yeah. Well, let's, wait, Joe was going to say something. then
Real
we're
quick,
done.
yeah, it would be nice in the future sometime to have a discussion on when we should speak out and when we shouldn't. And Ray hits the point here. And I really enjoy Luther's large catechism, which I'm teaching in the women's thing. We're about halfway through it right now. It takes almost a year to teach the thing by the time you go through it in detail. But Luther's very clear in there. I mean, he looks at his fellow priests, and how does he refer to them? He refers to them as a bunch of fat, drunken
Pigs.
swine
Yeah.
that
Pigs.
lazy, fat, drunken
No,
swine
but like I said,
that call themselves
Listen,
doctorates.
in today's society, yeah, right. But like I say, in today's society, we don't want to talk like Luther. But let me just say, and then I'll turn it over to Deacon Dennis for the song. If you ever want to get to the heart of Luther, what he was like, read the preface to the Small Catechism, which is in the back of the book. It is. But you read that, because he's mad, and he's very earthy with the way that he speaks. And so, but if you ever want to, I do that. It's probably maybe 4 or 5 pages long. I mean, it's something. Yeah, no, I know. So, okay. So, okay, we're gonna sing now. I'm gonna turn off the recording, but you guys, whoever wants to say, Troy, good to see you. Let me see. Let me turn.